Hello, I'm Regina Botras, and this is Backstage, where we talk with the who's who on stage, in dance, comedy and performing arts, speaking with the leading theatre makers of our times and how they came to the stage and what drives them and inspires them. Well, my guest is Anita Heiss. She's a member of the Wiradyuri Nation of Central New South Wales and one of Australia's most prolific and well-known authors, publishing across genres including non-fiction, historical fiction, commercial fiction and children's novels. She's also a marathon runner. But this is her first adaptation for the stage. The show is Tiddas. It's on at Belvoir Theatre till the 28th, and it's the story of 5 friends, and I suppose the kind of roller coaster ride that happens when friends who have known each other for so long, the secrets, the lies, and the candid intimacy of female friendships. And the friendship is, I think, is a good word. Anyway, welcome, Anita Heiss.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here. Excited to be back in Gadigal country because I live up in Muggingon in Brisbane now. So it's wonderful to be back here in Sydney and with my play in what is like my semi-hometown at Belvoir, where I was only ever an audience member and had my first taste of theatre at Belvoir.
So this adaptation is not set here. Where is the setting of this? And yeah, is it kind of based on like friendships you've had at all?
I hope it's based on friendships that we can all audience members can see some of their friends or some of themselves or some of the conversations they've had with friends in their lives. It was actually based, I was living in Sydney at the time, but I was touring with a book down in Mudgee. I was touring with Manhattan Dreaming, and while I was there, someone said to me, you should write a book set here, and that's Wiradyuri country. And so that's the seed was planted there. And then the woman who was hosting me, she said, and you should have a character who's a doctor's wife. And so I have a character now who one of the dramas in this character's life is the doctor husband has left her. But so some of the characters come from Mudgee. There's 3 Wiradyuri women and 3 non-Indigenous women. And over the course of their lives, they move from Mudgee in their 20s. They all move to Mudgee at different periods to Brisbane. And then they set up a book club and they meet once a month to talk about, love and life and careers and all those jagged bits in between. And so because I love Brisbane, I fell in love with Brisbane. And one of the first reviews I got of the novel back in 2014 was that it was read like a love letter to Brisbane. And I thought that's a really beautiful way to express the way I actually feel about Meanjin or Muggingon, and I don't think a lot of people see Brisbane the way I see it, and I find it very peaceful. And Maiwar, the river, and the character Ellen in particular, all of them, there's a connection between, Maiwar in Brisbane, the river, and the Kudgegong River down in Mudgee.
So how has it been adapting what is like 360-something pages to a stage production? What has that process been like for you?
I need to stop starting with it was very challenging. It was very exciting. It was very challenging because for your listeners who just like to write, for yourself, whether it's a poem or a novel or your journaling, it's just you and your thoughts and your characters, and then you may share them with a writing group or a publisher, an agent or so forth. But when you're writing a play, and of course I'd never done this before, and I was approached to do it by Nadine McDonald-Dowd, who is the director of the play here in Belvoir, co-directing with Roxanne McDonald and also directed up in Brisbane. I'd never even thought about writing a play, so I had no idea how to go about it. So Nadine gave me a lot of scripts. I had read a lot of plays through my PhD on Aboriginal literature and publishing, so I'd read a lot of plays, and I had attended a lot of theatre, but had no idea what it takes. And so I started off by just turning all the prose into dialogue, and I thought, this is okay, I can do this. But of course, that was about 5 hours long. It's like another Cloud Street. I thought I had to be really, really true to the novel, and I had all these sticky things and all these fluoro things going on, and I don't know why I'm doing all these visuals for the listeners out there. You can't see them. But anyway, and then one day we start talking about it, and I start being mentored with the dramaturg Nadine, and then we go into COVID. So that's in January, COVID starts. So we're in Queensland, we actually had some more freedom, obviously, than everywhere else. So we were only in lockdown for a couple of months. So Nadine and Sonia Simic from Laboite and I, we were at QPAC and we were working through drafts and everything. So I was learning, and Nadine said to me at one point, if you bring that novel in this room one more time, I'm going to throw it, because she said, you have to let the novel go now. So that was interesting, because I wanted it to be true, and it is true. But of course, the novel came out 10 years ago. And so the play has some, contemporary moments that reflect contemporary moments in time, and in terms of, there's brief mention of the referendum and so forth. So there's a comment, a line by one of the characters that alludes to Black Lives Matters and so forth. And so, but it was there was a lot of tears. Regina, there was a lot of tears, because it's quite difficult when you're close to something that you've created and you love it and you know what you want it to be, and then there's 20 people in a room. You've got the director, the cultural producer, the artistic director, 7 actors. Everybody wants to give you what they call you, in inverted commas, listeners, offerings. Right? So they're going like, oh, it's just an offering. So they're giving you their ideas. And I'm like, oh my God, I've already got enough ideas. I don't need like 20 more ideas. And so to be honest with you, there were a lot of moments of, where I felt inadequate, the whole imposter syndrome, which I have every day anyway. And then I'm in a space where there's veteran actors like Annie Roxy, and Nadine's been doing this for, 30 years or something. And all these amazing actors, we were doing reads over Zoom and so forth. We had Shari Sebens and Kylie Bracknell and Justine Clark and Colin Kinchler here in Sydney. We had all these readings, all these talented actors who know what works on the stage. And of course I don't. I know what I like as an audience member, and I know what I wanted to say as an author/playwright. But so I really had to learn to understand, appreciate and understand that all these people had all this experience and knowledge and wisdom, and I had to trust that they knew when they were offering something that it's because they believed that, they too believed that this would work on the stage. It's about 5 women and an auntie. So it's really, it is a story by women for women, about women. But so one stage, somebody had said in the rehearsal room, if it's a women's story, we really should lose the male character, because there's Sean Dow plays 4 male characters. So Isabel's brother, Nadine's husband, Xanthi's husband, and Craig, the date of Ellen. And so, but what I wanted to do with that character, and one of the comments I got from the first review on the book was about how I had portrayed Aboriginal men, or men generally, in a really positive light, because quite often, they run in a hard time. And I said, look, I've portrayed men the way I have them in my life, and the men that I have in my life are highly respectful. They're supportive of their sisters and their mothers and their aunts and their cousins and the women in their lives. They are present, and I love them. And I can't imagine telling my story about my life without acknowledging the men in my life. So it wasn't difficult for me to write that. But that was just one of the comments. And I said, I understand what you're saying. However, this is the purpose of those men.
Are we still in Brisbane for the stage? And what is it like to have something that is 3D, I suppose, which your imagination is so great and transports you all over the place, to a 3D, from 2D to 3D? Like, how's that?
That's a good question, because that's also one of the learning things is, like, when you're in the novel, or whatever you're in the novel, whether you're writing fiction or non-fiction, you're writing all the detail. What can the person or the character see and smell and feel? And you're writing down what they can think. And, of course, none of that goes into the script, because the thinking and the action, and it's all directorial, I learned. So that, in the novel they might say, Izzy sits on the park bench and listens to the birds singing and, thinks about the baby, where that's all got to be turned into dialogue. And then she's got to be sitting on a park bench somewhere, and it's all visual. So that was a learning thing. But in terms of the first time I saw the full dress rehearsal, and I just sobbed for about 5 minutes, because I just felt all the emotion of the intention of the emotion of the play.
And it sounds like, that kind of feeling and emotion of being in a room and feeling the energy of the room change is something that is like heightened off the page that you can't get outside of in the book alone while you read. Does culture play a role? I mean, you mentioned the referendum, there's sort of comments to Black Lives Matter and that sort of thing. Is that part of the world?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I want to make people laugh. So I'm someone who relies heavily on dialogue and comic timing from the actors as a way to engage people, and then having them relax then into a space of, we're going to hit you with something dramatic. And there's a particular line in the play where every night here and even in Brisbane, it's a really awkward, there's some, I don't think non-Indigenous people know whether they're allowed to laugh. It is a political thing, and then we're meant to laugh, so it'd be funny. But I had Wesley Enoch as my +1 the other night, and your listeners will know Wesley as his, fantastic legend, icon in Australian theatre. And he laughed at this particular line. But we get a report every morning about the moments where audiences respond and laugh or ooh, ah, or clap or whatever. And that comes up every single night. But it is, I'm looking around the theatre because I've seen the play so many times. I'm looking around to see how people are reacting. Lots of particularly women cry. There are some moments that there's a lot of triggers in the play. There are warnings about the triggers. Because one of the characters is desperate to get pregnant, another one's already pregnant and doesn't know she's going to keep the baby. So we've got drama around that in terms of, in that friendship circle. I love you, but I think I'm still judging you for you may be making the wrong decision, sort of thing. But that immediate reaction is something that's quite extraordinary. As you say, sometimes you never, ever, ever, ever know a response to your work in a literary sense, because people are reading them privately on the bus or in bed or at the beach or whatever, or they're in book clubs and still you don't know what's being said.
One last question, because we're nearly out of time. But that drama, you mentioned the drama between the two sisters and pregnancy or wanting to be pregnant. Is that something else? Because in the novel, that's sort of a long, the personal feelings of the characters. But what is that kind of drama? How is the drama different, I guess, in a novel as opposed to a stage?
Well, as you say, timing, you've got to do the drama. The drama's quick, it's short, the dialogue is intense. You feel the tension between, particularly there's 2 or 3 moments where there's a lot of tension between the women, but it's not just that moment in terms of when there's the conversation around fertility and, pending pregnancy. There's drama around a character that has a substance abuse issue and constantly abuses the other women, and then having to be confronted with her own issues and needing, and you mentioned it in your intro, this the secrets and the lies and lying to ourselves, and needing to admit to herself what's going on. So I think they're the sort of things also that challenge audience members who may have family members or may have past issues around, some of the things that the women deal with and talk about. And because it's not about being black or white. Some of this stuff has got nothing to do with being black or white. It's about the human experience. It's about how we feel and how we trust other people with our secrets and how we trust ourselves. So that's just about being a human being.
Well, I will let you go and get back into the theatre. Anita Heiss, thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see it.
Thanks for having me.
The wonderful Anita Heiss there with Tiddas, playing at Belvoir Theatre till the 28th, but selling out fast. So grab your tickets.